welcome to the North America Gaelic Football Podcast, the home of Gaelic football here in North America. I'm your host, Connor Green, along with Down's finest, Gareth McAlinden. Just before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Masida, who've been the official sponsors of the USGA since 2017. They're a family-owned, 100% Irish business. Leading manufacturer of sports kits and teamwear. If your club is looking to get involved with Masida, just feel free to give us a shout. We can definitely put you in touch with the right people. So without further ado, let's welcome our next guest, Gary O'Daly. Gary, what's the crack with you?
Thanks a million, lads, for having me on. I think a little bit of a time difference here. You're over there in the States, and I'm here in Galway in the west of Ireland. So delighted. Thanks so much for asking me on, guys. And any way, shape or form we can promote Gaelic football in hurling and our lovely sports we have here, I'm delighted to do so. So thanks a million again for having me on.
It's great to hear that over in the States, by.
I've never been to America, but I've been in some states. So, Gary, can you walk us through a bit of your Gaelic football journey, where it all began to where you are today?
Yeah, I suppose I started off as probably anyone did over in here anyway. Or I'll say over here as if that you're not from Ireland yourselves. So I think I went to my first under-10 training when I was 4 years old. And my brother and myself started. He was under 10 and I was 4. So obviously I had to go along with him as well. He was 8, I was 4. And at those times now, I'm 29 now, so this is around 1998. So there was no under 6s, under 8s, under 10s. It was just under 10. You get them off there, they run around the field for an hour, they come home tired. Well, relatively tired, and they go to bed. So I started, like I'd say, the togs were down to my ankles. The jersey now was probably down over the boots as well. But that's kind of where it all started. So I remember, like, I had a picture up on my Instagram the other day. Someone sent, went around a group chat at home. And it was a community games Gaelic match we played in 1999. And I remember it clear as day. It's my first memory of playing Gaelic football. We're playing Boyle. Anyone who's familiar with the Roscommon area, Boyle had, I think they'd won the community games, or they went to Mosney playing Gaelic. And anyone who's unfamiliar with Mosney, that was like the Olympic sports of community games in Ireland. It's a pretty big deal to go to Mosney. And then we bet them on the day. And I remember coming on to the pitch. And at the time, obviously, I was like 5 in 99, and it's under 10s games. So obviously, I was the smallest, as shortest, I was the youngest, so I wasn't going to be starting. I remember coming on to the pitch thinking, right, I'm coming on now to do a job. I want to let the manager know here I'm to do my business. I have 10 minutes to show what I'm about. I remember running onto the pitch and hearing eruptions of laughter because I was probably about 2 foot tall, the shorts down to my ankles, the jersey was coming over my hands, it was so big of me, and I could not understand why some people were laughing at me. And I genuinely, I'm not even joking, I ran through someone's legs. That's how small I was playing under 10s. That's where I started. And I like that, just kept going back, and they're probably thinking, why is this gobshite coming back here again for? Everyone was laughing at him the last entry. He's coming back again. And I said, man was only delighted to get me out of the house for an hour and get a bit of peace and quiet, and let me run around chasing balls and doing God knows what else to the pitch. But obviously after a while, the older you get, the better you get as well. And the more you train your skill set, the more enjoyable it becomes then as well. We would have been a little bit unfortunate growing up in North Roscommon in our club. We wouldn't have had a massive population, and the quality of our teams wouldn't have been amazing compared to other clubs, just down to the population we had, and we would have been in the lower divisions of Roscommon and that. So there was a lot of times growing up where, you're getting disheartening losses playing under 10s, under 12s, under 14s, you're thinking, Jesus, will we ever win a game? And you might win one game a year, I might do well and win 2 games in a year, but like that's what keeps you going, that kind of, you want to get better, you want to improve yourself, and then you go into secondary school, then you're playing with people from other clubs, and you're playing with people who are playing at a higher division, so then you get to test yourself against these lads. Then you might be, I'm good on my team, but how good am I compared to, on a different team with other players? And then, I was fortunate enough to myself growing up that I would have been playing on development panels in Roscommon from under 14 level up to minor level. So I was always able to kind of challenge myself at that topper level against the top players. Now I got dropped into minor championship panels, so I never made the top grade. But I was there or thereabouts at that time for myself, and I know mistakes I made myself at the time. My training and my nutrition were off altogether. But kind of growing up then, starting off from 4 years old, playing up now, I'm 29 now, so I'm playing. I can't remember a time where I wasn't playing Gaelic football or watching it or out the back kicking ball against the wall or pretending to be this player, pretending to be that player. And like that, I'm watching the likes of Shane Walsh and David Clifford now playing, and I'm still going down to the pitch and trying to emulate what they're doing on the pitch. Even though I'm nearly a 30-year-old man, I'm still always trying to improve myself and try things out that I see during games. And I think that there's always should be an element of that, no matter how old you get. And I often hear it that people like, I'm too old to be trying to kick my left foot now, or I'm too old to try a new position. Like, these could be lads who are like in their mid-20s. You're never too old. Like, I know lads who are in their 40s in our club that want to play in new positions just to keep things interesting. Because if you start playing and you're a cornerback, for argument's sake, and you're a cornerback when you're 12 and you finish playing when you're 40 and you're a cornerback and you never played in any other position on the pitch and you always kicked the ball with your right foot and you always wore number 2 and that's it. That was your whole football career was the same thing. Geez, there's so much more to the game than that. And there's so many ways you can adapt yourself, change your physical appearance, whether that's getting bigger, that's getting stronger, that's getting more powerful, that's becoming extremely fit and maybe do more endurance style work, maybe you can move further out the field. It doesn't have to be a case now you have to go in to be a full forward from corner back. But maybe you try centre back, maybe you try wing back, maybe you go around to be a Roman midfielder, maybe it's a sweeper. There's so many different positions you can play in a similar area to what your thing is. And that's the kind of what I'm going off on a tangent here, lads. But that's kind of going about my journey with GAA is always trying to kind of improve myself. And I would all primarily have been a forward, but I played a lot of time in backs. I played a lot of time most of the time in forwards. I played a couple of games in midfield. It didn't last too long because I'm 5'8", and I think it was about a week I was tall when I was about 15, and I played midfield for 1 or 2 games. But I suppose that's kind of my journey, and like that, growing up, staying with the club, and I made a Cardinals and I transferred clubs within Ireland. I went from a club in Roscommon to a club in Leitrim and moved back home then again as well. So I found how important a club is to yourself and how important players are to a club, especially a club with lower populations where one extra player in a team literally could be them having a team or not, compared to being like obviously a town team and a culture team. Might go over a few people's heads there, but a town team, like the year I left Carrick and Shannon, they had, I think it was 12 minors come through. And the year I went back to playing at my home club, I was the only person that come up that year because there was no minors came up from that age group. So again, it's just kind of enjoying and realizing that it's not all about winning. It's about just representing your parish, playing with the people you grew up with, and like that. From playing with 4 years old, I played with a lot of people, and I'm still playing with the same people from my first training when I was at under 10 training in 1998, and we got to a Connacht final last year, and we're celebrating all last year through wins, losses, weddings, and everything else. And it's the same group of lads that came up from that same couple of training sessions from 1998 onwards, from when I was 4 years old. So I suppose a bit of a long-winded answer there, but we got there in the end.
Yeah, no, I totally sympathise. The whole small club thing you were talking about there. My club in County Limerick is very small. Like, we always, I don't know how many hammerings we got, especially in underage. It's that bit tougher, like, isn't it, when you don't have the numbers. But yeah, it's tough for the small, like, you're competing against teams that are getting 30 plus lads at training. It's very hard for a smaller. You're lucky to get 10 there sometimes, kind of thing. But then it's funny. Then you see the odd story of a small club succeeding, and you kind of feel like it's a bit of a cop out there,
Yeah.
Like the likes of, say, I'm just thinking of one example, Ballysaggart there, County Waterford. Like, they must have a population of like a few hundred, but then they have the Bennett brothers, and they have like 4 or 5 fellas, I think, on the Waterford County hurling team.
Yeah.
Just real quick, you were talking about going into that cornerback role. I don't think anybody over here would ever want to go into a cornerback role with a 13-a-side game. It might be a little different there in a 15, but when you're going up against an inside forward who's just absolutely flying, and you're cornerback, there's nothing more draining than playing cornerback.
Yeah,
or you're in there against a big full forward, and it's you in no man's land. So. Yeah. Might be a little different at home, but 13 aside here on a big field, that can get pretty tough.
My father made a good point to me before there. Like, he's, like a lot of clubs in Ireland are against 13 aside. I feel like purely just because they don't think it's, it's not, you're going to be playing 15 aside, you don't want to give fellas a false sense of confidence almost. But like, would you rather, Mark, would you rather be a cornerback that's kind of grown up playing 13 aside? And, you've that bit more freedom to move around a bit and carry the ball a bit more, rather than being a cornerback in 15-a-side. You're much more of a just hands-on kind of defender, like,
I think Cross McLean had an article out about that, right? Cross McLean and County Armagh.
They did, yeah.
Had an article about, maybe some of the benefits of having a 13-a-side championship. I don't know. Has that ever been brought up around your neck of the woods, Gary?
Not in terms of senior championships. So growing up, we would have always played underage, 13 aside. Just again like that, because just the numbers that were in the clubs. But we had one really good year underage where it was actually 11 aside, and they brought the sidelines in. So it was 2 lines full back, 2 lines half back, 2 midfield, 2 half forward, 2 full forward, and the pitch was brought in about 10 meters on either side. And actually, it really suited us because from teams with smaller populations, you usually have a decent enough spine. You'll have a good midfielder, 2 good forwards, and 2 good defenders. And like on every team, like there's always 1 or 2 players that get carried along, and that's still have a job to do on the pitch. And it was actually we really enjoyed it, and we actually did really well that year. But in terms of senior level, I've never heard any conversations about it anyway. You played the odd challenge game when maybe there's lads still coming back from the pub, or they're cows calving or something going on, and there's people don't turn up in the second half. But I've never heard any conversations of it being in the pipeline for it to happen.
That's the thing about the 15-a-side back home, like, isn't it? With the smaller clubs, you'd nearly always have 12 or 13, decent players, but it's the 1 or 2 that you're kind of just bringing along are going to end up costing you against a good team,
So yeah, we're all in this pre-season mode here. Our championship is going to probably start in June. A lot of clubs are already in pre-season mode, maybe halfway through. Maybe some of them are already done. What would you say are probably the big physical demands for a Gaelic footballer, and like how the demand change, as we move in early pre-season into, all right, we're getting into challenge games and maybe in the early season?
I suppose the main thing with pre-season training is you're getting your body ready to be able to take the load from games. So your pre-season training is going to be, you're working on your strength and conditioning. You might be a little bit more in the gym compared to on the pitch. Maybe it's 50-50. And obviously, everyone's pre-season is going to look different depending on their schedule, what their work is like, what their home life is like, and what they can commit to. And there is no one size fits everyone. There's no one best plan for everyone, unfortunately. I wish there was, because it would make life so much easier as a player if you're like, right, here's my plan. I know I'm going to follow that, and I'm going to get the same results as everyone else. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Some people need to work on more things than others do. Maybe the off-season and pre-season is a fantastic time for someone. Right, I'm really going to get my fitness up now. I want to be the fittest player on the team this year, whereas someone else who is the fittest player on the team, they might be like, right, I need to work on my strength and power, because yes, I can run around the pitch all day, but I'm really slow over those first 5 yards, and I keep getting betted by the ball, as you were saying there earlier, from like a nippy corner forward. He keeps beating me to the ball, and I want to stop that this year. I think something that the one thing that everyone should be doing in their pre-season, and I think even in season, especially in all GAA, is doing sprint work in isolation. And max velocity sprinting and max velocity running. It's very, very seldom you actually do this in collective team trainings. And you might think you're going balls to the wall, bursting your bollocks, running up and down. But are you actually reaching your top end speed at your absolute max velocity? If you're looking at a hamstring injury, which is probably one of the most common injuries you see in GAA and across all field sports, not just GAA, a lot of the time it happens when people are going sprinting or accelerating, or they're running at top end speed. And it usually happens during the game or in a game scenario in a training session. And if you look at how often do you practice that sprinting in isolation, and I mean proper sprint, not you're sprinting out to 20-meter line, you're running back, and then you're taking 5 seconds break and doing that again. That's conditioning work. Proper sprint training is you take 1 minute rest for every 10 meters you cover. So if you're running 40 meters, you're taking 4 minutes rest, and you're doing that for around 12 to 15 reps, or anywhere from 9 to 15 reps even. Like that, sprint training does not mean that you're going to be absolutely tired or bollocks or you can't move off the pitch. That's more on the conditioning side of things, where you're doing your bronco runs, your tempo runs, your mass runs, whatever runs you're doing, fartlek runs, doing an assault bike workout, whatever it is that you're doing. That's your condition, and that's perfect. So many different variables and different types of workouts we can do on that. But if we're looking at improving our speed, improving our power, and want to get faster, which I think is, talking with so many people online, it's the main goal people always tell me is like, when I ask people, what's your main goals if they're coming on board for online coaching? I want to get faster. I want to get stronger. I want to get more powerful over those first 5 yards. I ask them, how much sprint work are you doing in isolation? They say, yeah, I'm out twice a week running on the pitch. I'll ask them what kind of runs they're doing, and they're doing conditioning work. Oh, I sprint out to 45 and back. I go again in 20 seconds time. I was like, okay, are you going as fast as you were in the first run compared to your last run? It's like, no. But then you're not doing speed work. You're not doing sprint work. You're doing conditioning work. The idea behind sprint training is you want to be able to go as fast as you possibly can for every rep that you're doing. That's why we're taking that 1 minute rest for 10 meters covered. And it might be a case that the 40 meters is too far to start off with. So it could be a case we're starting off at 10, 20 meters, taking 1 minute rest for the 10 meter runs, 2 minutes rest for the 20 meter runs, and building it up over time. And like that, we're GAA players, even the top level inter-county athletes, probably cannot hold their top end speed for 100 meters like Olympic sprinters can. So the idea of being able of going out and running 100 meters sounds fantastic, but in reality, even Olympic sprinters aren't holding their top end speed for 100 meters long. That's why Bolt was so good as an Olympic sprinter, because he was able to hold his top end speed a little bit longer than the other guys. It wasn't a case that he was faster of the whole thing, because if you look at any of his races, he never had the best. Some of the races he had a fantastic start, but he was never winning from second 0 to second 9 or whatever he finished it in. He always kind of finished strong at the end because he was able to maintain that speed longer when those guys are slowing down. So it doesn't have to be a case where we're not running 100 meters. Anything from 5 to 45 meters is plenty. And that's one thing I think that players aren't doing enough of in the pre-season. Then come in season time when you're doing those challenge games, doing a couple of league games at the start, that's when we tend to see those injuries piling up, where hamstrings are getting pulled, groins are pulling, and like that we're not involved in that change of direction work as well in the pre-season. So there's two great things that we can do in the pre-season now that isn't going to be too taxing on the body. Practicing sprint work and isolation and a small bit of change of direction. It doesn't have to be anything major. And then as the season is going along, as we're going into our league games, in towards a championship, when it comes to that big game and we want to sidestep someone, we know we've practiced so many times in isolation that it's not going to be a problem. And we know then if I'm running against this nippy corner back, well, I've been practicing my sprint work all year. I know I'm going to get out in front of him. I'm going to get the goal. So that's a great thing that we can do in our pre-season. Outside of that, then we have to ask ourselves what our secondary goals there. Is it a case that we want to get bigger and stronger? Is it an aesthetic thing we want to look better? And again, I have no problem with saying I have aesthetic goals. Sometimes it became my main goals and took away from my GAA performance, and it was a detriment to my performance. But I want to look a certain way, and I know a lot of lads and a lot of ladies do, and that's fine. There's a way we can factor that into our training to help our performance on the pitch by also hitting those secondary goals, whether that's making the jersey a little bit tighter on our arms, maybe that's making our arse a little bit tighter in the shorts, whatever the case may be. We can factor that in as well. And you need to have those secondary goals in a training plan to keep us interested long term. Again, we're not professional athletes, and even the top inter-county players, as professional as they are, they're still not getting paid to do it, or if they're getting brown envelopes, it's not been disclosed by anyone else. But they actually still have secondary goals, and they obviously have their training plan. And I suppose if you take away the top inter-county players, their training is probably very boring in the sense that they're going in, they're doing their set stuff that they know they need to do. They have a game on a Sunday, the championship final, or Cork final out, for example, Sligo and Galway. They're out now in a couple of weeks' time. Their training at the moment is probably very boring in the gym, their solo sessions, because they know, right, I need to do A, B, C, and D. I'm in and out in 45 minutes, staying fresh, and then I get to play my game. Then that's the main thing. Whereas if we're in our preseason now here, as we're talking, if we're going in and if our training's that monotonous and boring at this stage of the year, geez, how are we going to stay on that long term come championship time in June, July time, where things are getting really, really, really important and we really want to focus in our training then? That's when training can become a little bit boring. Right, okay, like I know only what I need to do now. If I'm doing that 3 months away from games and like I'm setting a regiment way that everything is performance, everything is power based, you're not going to stick to it long term. You need to have like a secondary goal to work towards. Not that everyone needs a secondary goal. If you're happy enough to do that, fantastic, brilliant, and that's great. If it's a case that you do have a secondary goal, factor that in then as well. And not everything has to be GAA related as well. But sprint training, I think, is something that for preventing injuries as well, I think it's something that we need to do more of. And I've been including it myself in the in-season here as well. Not a case that I'm going to get any faster, but just running at that top end speed prepares the body for that to happen during games. And it's not something that happens enough during training sessions. So doing that in isolation, if we do that in isolation, it means then our body is used to running at that top end speed during games. That's something we can do. And obviously skills work. And as I was saying there at the start, that I'd be out copying Shane Walsh and David Clifford at 30 years old, doing the skills work, trying to improve your skills in every way or shape we can. Even if that means just getting the ball and kicking it up against the gable side of the house, left foot, right foot, for 10 or 15 minutes a day, working on the basics, fist pass and kicking it over a head, catching it, trying a few different ways of kicking the ball Are we finding that our kick passing is always too high? Does it always come down with snow on it? Is there any way we can make that a little bit snappier, like a little bit faster, a little bit more driven into the chest, as opposed to a big loopy high ball that's getting intercepted? So I think writing down your own personal goals, I found myself anyway, I know that we kind of a visual person in that way, that once I write it down, and I have to see it there, I physically can see it, I have a goal in place, I can work towards that. Then if I know somebody loves their whiteboards, I'm not a whiteboard person now, but somebody loves that whiteboard on the board and see it every morning. It's like, oh, I'm going to be, player of the year, or enter X goal, or whatever it's going to be. And for myself, I had a goal at the start of the year, and I've mentioned it before on my own podcast and on my own page and my teammates. I want to hit a minimum average of 4 points a game. I know last year and previous years, even up until last year, if I hit 1 point a game, that was me happy. And I found that coming towards the end of games, if I had hit a point and the game was in the melting pot, I could find myself a little bit lost, because I've got my score. I'm happy myself. I'm happy, to allow someone else to step up here. Or even if it is in a game that, you're losing and you want nothing's really happening and no one's stepping up to the plate, and I got my score, sometimes found myself waiting around for someone else to do something. Whereas when I have to set this goal now, I was like, right, I want to hit 4 points a game. And right, okay, how can I get on the ball to make sure I hit my own personal goal, which in turn will help the team? It's not a case now I'm being a greedy bastard and I'm kicking the ball every time I get it. Obviously, the team tactics come first. And look, if I'm the right man, in the right position, I'll take on that score. But I want to make sure I'm the right man, in the right position more often. So again, set a goal for yourself for the year, whether that's physical, whether that's skill based. Set a plan around that then. So, for argument's sake, I want to go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm going to do my sprint work on a Tuesday. And I'm sure the facilities you have over there, lads, are amazing. There's so many tracks and pitches and gyms that go over there. I'm sure even abundance of places like that. It might be a little bit more difficult for the pre-season in Ireland when, it's a cold, wet night. There's no pitches that have lights on. There's no running tracks. There's no indoor facilities. So if you have the facilities to do it, I'm not saying now that you're all multimillionaires and have all the best facilities in the world, but if you have the facilities available to you, and you have those goals written down, it can become very difficult for yourself to talk yourself out of doing the training sessions. Whereas, again, talking about my own experiences here, coming through pre-seasons of not really having a goal at all, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, sure, I want to play better this year. But leaving it that vague, like, okay, what exactly am I looking to improve this year? Was it my fitness? Was it my speed? Was it this? Turned out it was everything. I wanted to get better at everything, and I did nothing to do that. And I did nothing. I put no plan in place to improve myself in any way, shape, or form. But the older I've got, the more I realize that myself, I know that if I write it down, if I say it out loud, even that's saying that to you now again about scoring the 4 points on average a game, that's again reinforcing that goal that I have in mind. I've said it out loud now again. It's a new audience that's heard me say this, which means now that I can't turn around and say, well, I never said that before. I have to back that up now. I'm not saying that I'm putting that pressure on myself, but I have to, I've said it, I was going to do it, I want to do it. I have no excuse now to say that, I can't do it anymore. So again, that's a little bit of a longer answer there again, but setting a goal in place. End goal is obviously you want to play as best you can come championship if you're playing GAA. And if you have a secondary goal, that's fine. Just make sure we're factoring it in and it's not taken over from our main goal, which, look, if it is a bodybuilding style goal, just don't let that take away from your performance. There is a way we can include everything. And the main thing is, I think, is so important to practice sprint work and isolation and run at top end speeds for the sole reason of preventing injuries, having the body ready for running at top speed, and it can actually help us get faster then as well.
So what you're saying is pre-season has changed.
Pre-season has changed.
Pre-season, I remember going, even for 15, 16, up to like Restrever. We had like an uphill run, and that was your pre-season. Every Sunday morning you went up to Restrever, up to Kilbrony Park, and you ran the hills. Mm-hmm. And it's, might be a long distance one week and then finish with sprints up the hill. So, it's, I guess it is different for every person, right? So, if weight loss, if you're on the, heavier set and you need to focus on endurance, that's probably more targeted to that person. But if you're fit, which a lot of, probably more catered to the senior player where they already have the fitness, mm-hmm. Then it's more catered to, all right, it's game fitness, it's game sprints. It's like trying to get it as close to match play as possible, as much as possible, I suppose. Is that probably the way to look at it?
Yeah, a little bit. And I think it's very important as well to keep as much enjoyment in the game as possible like that. Like, we do this because it's a hobby. It's not a case we're getting paid to go out there, we have to perform every week. We need to keep it enjoyable. I think that's the main aspect of any training sessions or games. Obviously, there is some competitiveness in it, and you want to do well and you want to win. But Jesus, you want to be enjoying it as well. You want to be able to play the sport, and like that, talking back to the times when you're playing under 10s and under 8s. I can remember how much fun it was going out just playing with your mates. You still want to keep that level of enjoyment as best you can. And obviously, football is more enjoyable when you're fit, obviously. And like that, there are still those dogging sessions when you're running up the hills and you're out in the bushes getting sick after the runs and there's no footballs in sight. They do still happen. There's a time and place for them, and sometimes they're more mental and character building than they actually have a physical benefit to them. But like that, they're the kind of training sessions you look back on in years' time. You're like, geez, wasn't that great crack in hindsight, looking back on that, because at the time it was terrible, but looking back on it, it was when that kind of brought us together as a team or whatever. But keeping the enjoyment element of it obviously is so important. Like that, it doesn't all have to be gym and strength and conditioning, fitness and all that kind of stuff. You need to be able to enjoy it. I think that is the main reason we all started playing football, and why we still play it is to enjoy the sport and try and just it is a way of expressing yourself. Like, whether you think that's cheesy or corny or whatever way you want to call it, it's a way of, some people love expressing themselves that way. They might be the most talkative person in the world, but geez, when they get onto the football pitch, they're able to do stuff that no one else can. And you're like, geez, I didn't expect that from him. Like, I didn't think he'd be able to kick spinners from outside the 45 and outside the right. But that's his way of just letting wherever you want his creativity go. Or if he's a playmaker, he's able to see passes no one else can see. And it's a way that people enjoy themselves, a way that people express themselves. And I think that's so important to keep that element of it in the game. I think some people complain that it's fallen out of the game. That's all these just athletes who can run up and down the pitch. I think it was Seamus Quigley from Fermanagh. I was on a podcast recently. He was saying that you can be a county footballer nowadays and not be very good. And there is a truth to that. If you are a really good athlete and you can play in a system, in a team, and just up and down the pitch all day, be fit, fast, strong, and just hand pass the ball to someone better than you, there's a place in the county team for some players like that. Not saying they're not any good, and not saying there's no inter-county players aren't good at all, but there might be more talented footballers in the county that aren't on the team. But then again, they might be doing the other work that's required of inter-county footballers, which is obviously the massive targets they have to hit and requirements of them. Seeing them in full flow in club games, there's nothing like it. If you go to a random club game or go to a championship game in your home county, even junior, intermediate, senior, slant to some game, and someone is just on form, and it's one of the best things ever. And if you are someone who that's happened to, where you have that day when things are just going right for you, you're just kicking points that you've only dreamed about, and you've put all the work in all the years, and you've been doing the skills work, and you're just express yourself in a certain way. It's unbelievable. It's nearly like chasing the dragon, or whatever you want to call it. You want to get that again, and that's what brings you back, that enjoyment. Like, oh, geez, I want to get that. Do you remember that point I scored that time? You always hear those out lads in the pub. Geez, do you remember the point I got that time against the local rivals and we won that game? And, it's talking about those memories, and expressing yourself and being creative, and it is it's a way of enjoying it. It's so important to get the element involved in it.
No, definitely. Like, part of the reason why I love football so much is you really can get out there and express yourself. There's many different ways of playing football. Like, isn't there? You can play physical, you can play more of a running game. You can kick with the inside, the outside of the boot, left, right, whatever. There's a lot going on that you could be thinking about. Definitely. But no, that's interesting what you're saying there about the sprint work, because there's definitely a lot of older lads who'd spit their fucking tea out at you, if you told them I'm going taking a minute break after 10 meters running, But no, it's interesting, definitely. I definitely agree that probably a lot of people don't really work on the sprinting as much as they probably should, especially in a sport like GA, But you see how they fall into that. They're just trying to make it more realistic for match play. But sometimes you need to mix it up a bit. So in season now, how would you recommend your in season gym workouts and all that? Do you think it's something you should almost put aside, or is it would you keep tipping away at it?
100%
at the gym work and all that? No, I mean,
yeah, again, like that. If we're going to the gym all pre-season and all leading up to the in season, why would we stop it? The gym sessions will change slightly. Absolutely. It's not a case you're going in there, you're doing your 1 rep max and stuff. It's about just maintaining the strength that we have, working a little bit more on the power side of things, and keeping the body fresh, keeping it robust. Like if we're working on our hamstrings, like I said, with the sprinting there as well, and we're strengthening in the gym, and we want to keep chipping away at that during the in-season to make sure, like obviously there's no such thing as 100% reducing the risk of an injury. Injuries happen, or there's no such thing as like an injury prevention exercise that if I do this is not going to get injured. We can reduce the risk of injury as best we can through preparation, through strength and conditioning, nutrition, sleep, recovery. But what's going to happen in a game if some 6'4" absolute animal of a man falls over and lands on you and you tear your knee? Like, it's just one of those things that accidents can happen, or your foot gets stuck in the ground, you twist and you do your ACL, or like that, you're sprinting. Like, I tore my own hamstring last year and I thought I prepared everything as best I could. It happens. Sometimes you can just do as much as you possibly can, and injuries happen. But if we're on a plan on the in-season, if we stop going to the gym altogether, the risk is elevated then again. So the gym work in season is going to look very different to the off season and pre-season. So the volume is going to be reduced. So if we're working off the RPE scale, and the RPE scale stands for the rate of perceived exertion, that goes from 1 to 10. So if we're looking at an RPE of 10, that's like a 1 rep max. We're doing 1 rep. We cannot do any more. That's an RPE of 10, absolutely maximal. Our training in season is probably going to be about a 6 or a 7. So if we're going, for example, if we're doing a bench press and we're doing 5 reps in the bench press, if we're working strength and power, just say we're not working on building muscle this time of the year, we want to pick a weight where we have around 3 reps left in the tank. So if we're saying we're going for 5 reps and we're picking a weight, we want 8 reps to be the absolute maximum amount we can do with that weight. And for some, that's going to look different for everyone. And before anyone goes any further thinking about weight, unless you're a power lifter in a competition and you want to win that competition, the weight that you lift is completely irrelevant. Yes, there are certain targets we can work towards, and yes, there will be a certain amount of crossover if we're stronger or we might be more powerful and might help us move faster or whatever. But it's not a case that I have to go in and I have to bench 100 kilos or 225 pounds. It doesn't, whatever. If an RP of 8 for you for 5 reps is 60 kilos, that's perfect. That's fine. We're staying in that bracket. We're staying in that window. If we go above that, what might happen is we might risk fatigue. Not so much on the upper body side of things. We might get away with going a little bit higher in the upper body. But if we're looking like a trap bar deadlift or squats or box squats, and we're going on an RPE of 9 or 10 out of 10, so just say we're going for 3 reps on box squats, and our 3rd rep is 100% maximal, and then we've trained on the following day, your legs are going to be a little bit more fatigued. And what happens when we're fatigued and we're going sprinting? We're going to be at higher risk of injury. So again, it's just been smart for our training sessions. And again, these are mistakes. I've made all these mistakes. Anything I've talked about here, and any mistake I talk about, I've made it myself. I've made all the mistakes. And my job as a coach is to cut people's learning curves, whether that's through my own mistakes or through stuff I've learned myself. I've made loads of mistakes. And gym work, I've put a priority over my pitch session and my performance on the pitch for a couple of years. And my performance was going down to it. And I thought because I'm doing more in the gym, I should be going up to it. It's like, okay, I need to do more and more and more. Where the case was, the more I was doing, the worse my performances get. What I needed to do was take a step back, bring the session intensity down. So again, it doesn't have to be a 2.5 hour grueling session. It might just be a 45-minute. If you're doing a leg day, it could be 4 exercises. It could be 3 sets of low reps, go bit of rest time. You're in and out in 45 minutes to an hour. You're not dying. It's not like you can't walk for 2 or 3 days, but come training the next day, you might find, geez, I actually feel really fresh. I actually feel really powerful. I've worked on that stuff yesterday. I don't find it sore at all today. It's helped my performance. So that's why in-season work is important to keep in. It's just, you might reduce the frequency of times per week you're going to the gym, or you're just changing your exercise selection and reducing the volume a little bit, or just reducing the weight. Obviously, you're looking at your goals then as well, working on strength, working on power, and bringing in some more plyometrics then as well in the in-season is a really good idea then as well to help with that power output. We're moving laterally, moving forwards, moving up, moving out, vertical jumps, single leg jumps, kind of trying to mimic as best we can what happens in a game. So if we're looking at the likes of like a box jump or a depth jump where we're jumping down from a height and we're transferring that force onto moving forward, that can happen in a game. If you're looking, I jump up for a ball, I catch a ball, I land, and I'm trying to move as quick as I possibly can. If we practice that in isolation in the gym, that can potentially help our performance on the pitch. And then obviously, like if we're just improving our overall strength and power then as well, that can transfer over then if we're doing our training sessions alongside it. It's not a case that we're absolutely balls to the wall and we can't move out of the gym afterwards and we're there for 3 days and we're we're dying, and we're doing these Arnold Schwarzenegger 10x10 German volume workouts where, we're killing ourselves. It's obviously, it changes with how much volume we're doing on the pitch and what our main goal is, which is obviously if it is GA performance, that it's going to complement that. So if that means we're only doing, and in season, anything from 1 to 3 full body sessions is perfect in season. Even if you're only able to go to the gym once a week, you're doing a full body session in season, that's perfect. That's fine. You're maintaining that strength that you have, working a little bit of power. The in season isn't going to be a time where we're adding, massive amounts onto our lifts, or we're going to add a massive amount of size. There's a way we can factor it in and hit both goals. Yes, that's when we get in touch with a coach, and I'll plug in myself here. Any coach out there who has that can really factor and tailor that in for you. It's a little bit harder for doing it ourselves if we're not sure how to do that. But for the 99% of people who are general gym goers, who like going to the gym in season, reduce the volume a little bit. Anything from 1 to 3 full body sessions in season is ideal.
Yeah. No, that's it, isn't it? Like, you don't always have to kill yourself in a session. Like, just even doing something is better than nothing, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But one thing that's been a hot topic there the last number of years, I suppose, is recovery. I know it's like to say for any people playing in the GA over here in America, like it's a short season, but it's very packed in. Like, a lot of weekends, even here now with our club, we'd have 2 games on a weekend, playing in serious heat too. And if we go out to the nationals, the finals they're on in August every year. It's usually a case of you're playing Friday, you win on Friday, you're playing again Saturday, playing again Sunday. So I suppose what tips would you have now for recovery?
Yeah, so there's 2 main pillars of recovery, and that's sleep and nutrition. So there's so many recovery tools out there at the moment, and they all are fantastic and can work, but they're not magic tools. So if you're looking at the likes of the cryotherapy, Normatec boots, massage guns, all these stuff have a place, and none of them are useless. They all do have a place, and they all do work, but it's not going to outdo poor sleep and poor nutrition. So after a game, I know, and it's extremely tough to do that if you're playing 2 days, 2 games in a row, or 2 games, 2 days in a row. Obviously, like the body can only recover so much in that space of time. But if we're looking at a game on a Friday, if you do have a couple of days in between, or if it's on one weekend and the next weekend, you're looking at trying to get 8 to 10 hours sleep after a game, if at all possible. Like, the sleep is so important in recovery. Like, if you're someone who gets 4 or 5 hours sleep and like, oh yeah, I'm fine, sure, that's how I do, and I drink 12 cups of coffee a day and I never need that sleep. You need sleep. The body needs sleep, and especially after putting it through a big, massive ordeal, which is a game like that in the heat and 13 aside, like you're running more, you're moving more. You need about 8 to 10 hours of sleep. You want to get good food on board, so you want to get protein on board to help with muscle recovery. You want to get carbs on board to help with the energy that you use during a game. So again, touching on the nutrition side of things, you need carbs. If you're playing any field-based sports, it's a glycolytic-based sport, meaning that you're using carbs as fuel. There's no 2 ways about it. It's science. It's not. You can't change science. You can't say, no, I'm burning fat when I'm playing GA. You're not. You're running, you're jumping, you're sprinting, you're kicking. All these stuff are short bursts of energy. Your body uses carbs as energy for that. There's no 2 ways about it. So you need to fuel using carbs beforehand. Then after you play the game, you need to replenish those glycogen storage with carbs. Obviously, there's going to be a difference between eating, a big bag of chips and a dirty burger, as opposed to getting, maybe potatoes and pasta. Like, obviously, look, you have to enjoy yourself, and if that's all you can eat, that's fine. But obviously, the quality of the food, the higher the quality, then there's a better chance we can get a recovery. But main thing is then you're getting that sleep. The sleep is so important. And like that, if we're playing 2 days in a row, maybe something like that, get into ice baths if you can, cryotherapy, Normatec boots, any of those extra bits then can help. But if you could only do one of those things, if you had an option of going to a recovery room or getting 10 hours of sleep, the 10 hours of sleep are going to be more beneficial than doing any recovery rooms. That's the main thing for recovery. And I'm guilty of it. I'm still guilty of it. It's hard. Everyone has stuff. Like, if you've, wife, kids, families, and you're trying to keep girlfriends, boyfriends, and everything happy, and like you play the game the evening time, and you have dinner reservation booked, or say you're playing the game in the daytime and you've dinner booked in the evening time, and you're not going to get those 10 hours of sleep because you have to keep relationships and lifestyle going. There's only so much you can do in a day. Ideally, in an ideal world, it wouldn't be great that we could get everything done. But if we're going to choose one of those things, it'd be 8 to 10 hours sleep, if at all possible. That's going to outdo or it's going to be more beneficial than any recovery tools, any recovery centres.
Yeah. So
I actually just see that at home. I see actually where I'm from up in Uri. There's a couple of it's almost like athlete driven recovery, like gyms. So it's just for recovery. So they have like the boots and they have the cryotherapy chambers. I almost think, we have some of that here, but I feel like it's not to the extent at home. They take it for such a, for an amateur sport, they take it so seriously. Like, it's treated GAA athletes. It's so professionally, even though it's an amateur sport, it's so professionally driven. The nutrition, the working out, the in-season, pre-season, but then that recovery piece as well. Is that same around where you are in Galway, or, is that just certain areas?
No, it's everywhere. Like there was a recovery centre in Galway. There's one in Carrick and Shannon. So I'm from Roscommon. I travelled home to play in Roscommon now, and Carrick and Shannon is about 20 minutes away from us. We were in there loads last year. So we got to county and Connacht final last year, and we were in there after the big games. And like that, you're making sure you're getting sleep on board. But like it's a great tool. When used correctly, it can improve your recovery. Some people will think that if I only just do that, sure, I don't need to do anything else. And I'll have 5 or 6 pints after the game, and I'll have my takeaway, and sure, I'm going to the recovery room tomorrow, so that'll make me more recovered. They are popping up everywhere, and they are great. It's a great thing to have, and like that, as you're saying there, it is getting more professional. And we're a junior team, and we're going into the recovery centres and intermediate and senior teams, ladies teams. All these teams are doing this now. It's fantastic. And again, I've heard people giving out saying it's taken the fun out of sport. It's become too professional, and it's too serious. But like that, there's always a team someone can play on. If you're to want to play that level, hopefully, if you're in a benefit of your team having a junior B team or a junior C team, whatever the case may be, there should be hopefully a team that's at your level and at your level of interest. And I think what happens is that people want to play as senior, but don't want to do any work. And when they see what's required of them or what everyone else is doing, they get upset because they don't want to do it, or B, they can't do it. And it's just their place is taken by someone else. And the easiest thing to do is give out and say, it's too serious. I don't want to do that. I just want to kick ball. I don't want to run anywhere, but I want to play senior football. I want to win all the games. But this is a part of it. And the recovery, I think, it's in the last couple of years, you're dead right, that these things are popping up everywhere. And it's great because it gives an option then for any player. There's no excuse to say that only those teams, only the team in Uri, that's the only team that have the benefit of that. I'd say within a stone's throw, well, give or take a stone's throw, in a half an hour drive, either direction, you're going to come across one of these recovery rooms, or someone that has a cryo bath, or someone that has a Normatec boots. Like, there's so many places out there that have them now, which is fantastic. Which means there's more options for people to do them. Which is
I'm a big fan of the ice baths. All right, I can actually just hear my girlfriend outside the window here screaming. She's getting in it there at the moment as we're talking. But
yeah, no, it's interesting because here's the thing: you could be a junior B team now or a junior A team, but if you guys are implementing, this is the training structure. This is how we do it. We're going to take this a lot more serious with our off season, with our preseason, with in season, and hey, in 2-3 years' time, now you've got the fundamentals built. Where the younger kids in the minor level in the 16 are seeing the same things. By the time they get to seniors, that's a different club. Now they're an intermediate club. Now they're pushing that senior level. Skill is a big element to it, of course, but fitness is also a huge element to it. When you have a team there you have 15 out there and maybe 16 or 17 coming off the bench that are fit as a fiddle. That's the difference between the junior B and the intermediate a lot of the times. Having that fitness where you can go a full, 70 minutes Jesus, is it still 70 minutes, lads, or is it 60 minutes?
It's 60 for club, but we had extra time and all that, you're probably talking about 70, yeah.
And there was actually a lad I think he was playing with the Connemara Gaels in Boston. I remember his name. I think he's from Derry. His name is Barry Grant. But he's got a company now where it's all recovery boots. And I actually still have him on social media, but I still follow him. and he's over with some of the Premier League players. He was at the new camp a couple of weeks ago in Barcelona with his recovery products. So you're definitely seeing it creep in. You know, it's definitely, once you're starting to see that at the, you know, Premier League level, you know, GAA stars are almost gonna follow that same suit, right? So when they see it at the professional level, they're gonna take on that same thing as well.
Just go back to one thing you were talking about there, Gary. Like I've heard a lot of people talk about carb loading before a game and all that. But are you saying would you say that the carbs are important right afterwards as well? Or
Yep. Yeah, 100%. So like, obviously you touched on the carb loading there. So like you look at, as I say, you need carbs, and a question you always get asked is, what's the best pre-match meal? Like if your only source of carbs before a game is a pre-match meal, you're not going to make it's not going to make a difference at all. So for a carb load, you're looking at 24 to 36 hours before the game. You're getting 6 to 8 grams of carbs on board per kilo of your body weight. Again, it's a lot of food. It is a lot of food, but it comes down to looking at your performance, being able to have, like, that's like if you're going driving across the country and you fill your car halfway with petrol, you know, it's not going to get you there. Whereas if you know you're driving from Dublin to Galway, you know, I'm probably going to need a full tank to get me there and back. If I fill it up halfway, and I know I'm not going to get there and back. So that's what you're looking at. The carb is the fuel to give you to last a full game. And the selection of carbs then as well is going to make a massive difference. If you're looking at very fast acting carbs all the time, so if you're eating cereals and white bread and bagels, yes, they're tasty, and yes, you'll hit your carb number with eating those, but they're very fast acting carbs. When it comes to game time in 24 hours time from when we're carb loading, there'll be very little carb stores there. So we're looking at a little bit of whole grain stuff, a little bit of medium to slow releasing carbs, the likes of oats, the likes of pasta, basmati rice, trying to stay away from processed and microwave foods then as well. So if you're looking at a bag of microwave rice, yes, it's very convenient, and yes, you know, the calories mightn't be the best, might not be the worst, but it might be 250 grams of rice in this microwave bag that I can throw in 2 or 3 minutes, and it's ready in front of me. In those 250 grams of rice, there might only be 30 grams of carbs. So every food is broken down and made up of different components. So 100 grams of rice is not 100 grams of carbs. It's broken up into different stuff. That's where processed food isn't the best option for carb loads, because, as I'm saying there, it could be 250 grams of rice with 30 grams of carbs. Whereas if you cooked 100 grams of basmati rice yourself from a bag, put it in the water, boil it, you could have 100 grams of basmati rice, could be 70 grams of carbs. So you're looking at over double the amount of carbs and half the less amount of food, and probably half the calories then as well in certain options. So again, those choices are going to come down and fuel us better. Now, as you're talking about after a game there, you want to get those quick-acting carbs on board then as well. So that's the likes of the white rice, you know, the white pasta, potatoes, stuff like that. That's going to be absorbed very quickly into the body and used quickly then again. That's what you're looking at. Before a game then, you're looking at a little bit more slow releasing stuff, slow to mid. Obviously, you can keep some quick-releasing carbs in there as well to help hit that number. But if your whole carb source is quick-releasing carbs, come game day, you might not have as much energy as you would do if you went for, you know, like oats and brown cereals and brown pasta and brown rice. Then after a game, then, you know, something like spaghetti bolognese or a chicken curry, something nice, tasty, even a sandwich, you know, so something that's handy. Get the chicken on board, get bread on board, pasta, rice, whatever the case may be. And again, with the food choices as well, the main thing is have food you like and you know you digest well. If you're listening to this, you're like, right, geez, I don't like oats. They make me feel like shit. I get really bloated. I get an irritable bowel. You know, I'm on the toilet too much when I eat oats. Then don't have oats. Find an alternative for you that suits you and your lifestyle and your bowel and your digestive system. There's no food you have to eat. Carbs are so wide. There's always going to be an option for carbs, whether you're celiac or gluten intolerant. There's so many different kind of foods out there that have carbs in them that could hopefully suit you and your digestive system. Just to kind of get out there as well. Not saying, oh, that bollocks told me I have to eat oats and nothing else, and I hate them and they make me sick. Find what works for you and find an alternative if you don't like any of those foods. Just try and stay away from the processed foods. You know, you're putting your chips in the oven. You know, probably not going to be the best. You're making baby potatoes with, you know, a bit of butter, a bit of salt, can make a very lovely tasty meal out of it, like nice home cooked meal. Maybe a better option then as well than, you know, just throwing stuff in the microwave. And I know it's, you know, we're living in an age of convenience. We want everything now. We want everything quick. Whereas if we just take the extra couple of minutes to make stuff from scratch, we're going to probably eat less calories for starters. Again, if that's something you're looking at, and getting more quality food on board and getting more carbs on board. And obviously the idea of a carb load is get as much carbs on board as possible in at least volume of food. So if we're eating, 250 grams of rice and only getting 30 grams of carbs, and we know that our carb load is, it could be something over 500 grams of carbs. And you're like, right, I'm after eating 250 grams of rice here, and I still have 400 and whatever 80 grams of carbs left to eat across the day, and I'm stuffed after this. Whereas if I had 100 grams of basmati rice and after knocking off 70, it's like, okay, that's going to be way better. I don't feel as full at all. I could probably have 200 grams of rice there and feel grand. So you know what I mean? So it's just we're making those food choices and making sure we're getting the carbs on board. Then after a game, then as well, getting those quick releasing carbs on board to help replenish the energy we use during the game. Then so nutrition is massive, and it's a thing that people are learning more about. And like I'm still getting kickback on carb load, saying, "Oh, there's no need to eat that much food." And like I've been trying, I'm not the one making it up. And then it's funny. There's two sides of arguments. Like I'm trying to, with my page online, like I'm trying to give as much information as I can to help people. Like obviously, 99% of the time, people listen to you or they like you and comment or whatever. But there's just some people who refuse to believe facts. And I'm not the ones making it up. I'm talking to top nutritionists. I'm talking to sports nutritionists, people who went to college a lot longer than I have and know a lot more than me. They're the ones telling me that they've worked with the likes of Dublin. They've worked in the higher inter-county teams. And they're telling me that this is what they're doing. And I'm relaying that information then to my followers. And then they're telling me that I'm full of shit. It's like, well, like, how am I full of shit? I'm literally telling you what someone who knows more than me told me. But yes, a carb load doesn't work because I don't know why you don't want to believe it for some reason, because you're comparing nutrition in 2023 to 1999, when it's probably the last time you kicked a ball in the first place. But it's so funny, like people just don't want to believe stuff. Right? Like that with the speed work, as you're saying there earlier on, that the owl heads don't want to resting for 1 minute after running 10 meters. Are you fucking mad? But like we know from science, I know from talking to top strength and conditioning coaches that this is it's the research is there to prove that this works. But it's funny, like when I get a lot from young lads as well, more so than now lads with speed work, because they want to go full tilt, full time, no slowing down, no rest. They want to be constantly going. But if you told them, I want to improve my bench press, rest for 2 minutes after you do 5 reps, they have zero problem doing that. Because if they see that they're getting stronger across the weeks, they'll do it. Whereas speed is one of those things that when you're constantly running fast, you're going to get faster. So it's funny that sometimes no matter how much information you give and you show the research and show all the information, people just don't want to believe it sometimes, unfortunately, whether it's right information or wrong information. And I've got to this stage now, and like I don't want to come across as sounding too much of an asshole or anything, but like at the end of the day, I don't care if you believe me or not, and I don't care if you do a carb load or not, or if you have 5 grams of creatine a day, or if you do your speed work and take the 1 minute rest or not. It's at a stage where, like, I know, and I won't take any comments personally unless someone comes personally attacking me and me and my character. It's a different story. But if people don't want to believe the information that I'm relaying, I'm not making it up. It's not like I said, "Oh, here's this special secret that I found yesterday." Like, I'm just relaying information that's already out there. If people don't want to believe it and people don't want to do it, I don't care. But I know from trying stuff myself, I know from people I've worked with online and my teammates and people I know, when they have done it versus when they haven't done it, I'm seeing improvements myself, seeing improvements with athletes over time. This is what works. This is what improves performance. Whether you want to do it or not is completely up to yourself. And whether you want to believe it or not is a different story. But I suppose a small tangent, I just wanted to get that off my chest. It's obviously been brewing there for a while.
I was just going to say it's great to have the likes of your page there with all the content. Like just like it's. There's not a ton of Gaelic football content out there by any means, like sometimes you're just looking for like a drill to do to get you through a training session, like, so it's great to have some of these people like yourself out there doing that,
The social media is, it's a fantastic place because, we wouldn't have connected without social media, and like connecting with different people and different, industries, different parts of the world. Look at the size of the Gaelic football community. You could be in Boston, you could be in Qatar, you can be anywhere in the world, and there's a Gaelic football community which you can connect with.
Do you know that World Games thing coming up there soon? I don't know if you've seen. We might have talked about it, Gareth. There's a fully Cambodian-born team going out for that. It's mad to see GA popping up in some of these places. Like, that's one of the good things about social media and the internet and all that. There's so much more visibility for all these things. You would have never seen Gaelic football in Cambodia fucking gone back 20 years ago, So I suppose to move on, what's next for yourself now, Gary? You've got a big charity game coming up, I hear. Are you doing a bit of coaching for that?
Yeah, so I was asked to do a bit of coaching for a TikTok charity match. It's for two great charities in Ireland, for Jigsaw for mental health and for the Irish Road Victims Association. So I was approached to that to come on board as do coach and train them, and I said I've absolutely no problem doing it as long as I can play in the game as well. So obviously, like some of these creators have, some of them millions, literally millions of followers, and they're all Irish, and like we've had a couple of soccer charity games I've seen, they've been involved in, and I always thought, like, it wouldn't be great if they did a Gaelic match, and probably the logistics of it's probably not worth even thinking about it, so it wasn't something I was going to go down myself. Whereas I asked to do this, it's on the 3rd of June in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and it's not on the main pitch, it's on the 4G, but still, to be able to say I had played a game somewhat close at Páirc Uí Chaoimh and Tog out in there, I'm really looking forward. Like, I'm doing a bit of coaching. Like, I never have done coaching before in the aspect of coaching a team, so it was a new challenge for me then as well. And I've travelled up to Dublin a couple of nights to do the training session with these guys. And to be fair, like, as much as social media people, like, you think that just because they have a couple of million followers, you are expecting the worst, thinking that they're going to be arseholes. And I think it's gone to a stage now. You see so many stories of ex-influencer was an arsehole because, where do you know who I am? You hear all this stuff. So we're nearly kind of in an age now where if people are popular, you're expecting them to be an arsehole, whereas it's probably still the other way around, that it's very seldom that someone's going to be a dickhead to you in person. Like, and all these guys are lovely, and like there was no one that had any ego at all. I was telling, we're doing drills, and I was like not calling people out, but like, you did that wrong, you picked it off the ground, or that was a foul, you took 2 bounces in a row there, and they're like, all right, Simon, thanks. And like, there's no kind of egos about it. Like, everyone's there to enjoy. Like that, come back to the enjoyment side of things. It's brilliant. I like it with the creator side, or the creator side of things then as well. It's great to see them exposing GAA as well. Some of these people have never played Gaelic football before in their lives, or if they did, it was years and years ago, and it's nothing got to do with their social media at all. So they might be, beauty influencers or makeup artists, or they're gamers or stitchers or gym guys and all. Like, it's a mixture of everything, or even just comedy sketches. But like, they've got followers.
Is that going to be a co-ed game, Gary?
Yeah, girls and lads. Girls and lads. So it's going to be hybrid rules there. Like, it's lads v lads is grand, girls v girls is normal, and then lads v girls is going to be like the ladies rules in as well. So it's no. Well, I'd say I'd be more worried about the lads or the girls trying to hit the lads as opposed to the lads trying to hit the girls, because some of them are very competitive, and they're getting struck right in, which is brilliant to see. But like that, they're influencers from all walks of life, and they've got followers from all across the world. And you can see that in the comment section as well, which is funny. You see people from Australia or America or whatever saying, like, what's red sauce? Like, people are trying to explain people then, like, what red sauce is. Like, they never heard someone saying that before, and like, that kind of stuff. So if they're able to make a video and expose GAA to their wider audience, which could be anywhere in the world, like you're saying there about the Cambodian team, which is fantastic, like a fully born and bred Cambodian team playing in the World Games. And like I said, like, all it takes is one, for a better word, a gobshite with an O'Neill's ball, how they can just bring a whole community together with a sport that they've never seen before and get this interest around it. And if we can get more eyes on our sport, I think it's better. And like, that's why I made my page as well. Like, it's just, the reason I broke my hand and I was out of work. I was working in a chemistry lab and I was bored off my head, and I was like, right, I was going to start videoing my training and my food and put up some football drills, and look at worst case scenario, I delete the page after a few weeks. People make fun of me, and now here I am, fucking nearly 4.5 years later, talking to a podcast in America about Gaelic football. And I guess sometimes you kind of realize, like, how good the GAA is. Like, again, if it wasn't for GAA, I wouldn't have an online social media page, and I wouldn't be talking to you, and I wouldn't be, able to be involved in this charity match with these amazing creators as well, and amazing people for an amazing charity. Like, it all comes back to the GAA, and it all roots back to that first under 10 training I did when I was 4 years old. If it wasn't for that interest in sport, I wouldn't, I've made amazing friends, amazing connections and everything. So it all kind of ties back into that. And I think that, I don't think anyone can be as grateful for GAA as they already have. But the more people we can get involved in it, and the more eyes we can get on it and expose, like, how we have these amazing sports that only in Ireland that are at the high level. Like, we can get more teams. Like, I know you're saying you've got teams, popping up left, right, and centre in America, which is fantastic, and in Cambodia, Uganda, all across the fucking globe. There's teams going up everywhere. And like, I've done talks with a team in Prague. Like, if you told me 5 years ago I'd be talking to a GAA team in Prague, telling them how to prep for their season, I'd be laughing at you. But now it's class. Like, I love it. Like, I've talked to another girl then who was down in where's it called, Saigon in Vietnam, and I got a Vietnam jersey and like through the mystery boxes, the mystery GA box. I got a Saigon Gales jersey, and I don't know how they seen it, but someone from the club seen it. Like, where did you get that jersey? And I was like, oh, I got it in a mystery box. I go, do you want to come on for a talk? I was like, oh yeah, sound, no problem. And like, it's just so funny that like for such a small community, even on a smaller island, you know, we still have this worldwide team and community around the whole thing as well. And the more eyes we get on it, the better, and the more we can expose it, the more we can share. And like that, I'll share as much GAA stuff as I can, because I think there's so many fitness influencers out there and gym work and sports performance people. You know, my spin on it on the social media side of things is trying to show as much Gaelic football as I can, because it's what I do anyway, so I'm not going out of my way to do it. I just have to record it, and B, if I can help someone. Like, I had a guy actually sent me a video a few weeks ago. I put up a video about improving your kicking distance or something small like that, and he sent me a video of in a private message of his 7-year-old son doing the drill and kicking the ball really far. And he's like, we're following your tips, and he's kicking the ball way further now because he followed your tips. And it's kind of like, it really kind of just brings you like right back to the reason why you start doing stuff, like why you start coaching. Like, geez, like if a 7-year-old who's starting to play football is saying, I got better because of you, like, geez, it means so fucking much. Like, as much as, like, you know, if an online athlete who keep benches 100 kilos for the first time, that's fantastic. But he's already thinking about the next goal like that. Whereas a child, it's something like so the vulnerability about it. Like, I remember when I was that age, and like, there was no social media, you couldn't log on, and even your parents, obviously at 7 you won't be doing it yourself, but there was like no way you could just see random people doing skills work. You went to your training, that's how you learn stuff. But if you could watch a video online now, I'm not saying myself, I'm not bragging here, but it's because there's a good few coaches out there that are doing stuff, that are helping players and stuff. Like a child has improved because of something that I posted online. It's still crazy to think about that there's that kind of connection. And again, going back to the GAA, I'm not sure what county that guy was from, but like, I may never ever meet that man ever again in my life, or ever in person. But I always remember that he sent me a video of his son doing my drills and getting better across the weeks, and like, that's just fucking class. Like,
so you're building your resume for getting a call someday from Boston or San Francisco. Hey, we're looking for a coach for the summer. You know, is this what this talk is all about? You know, maybe there's an added incentive for this call, but you know, I know coaches do get paid to come out here, so you never know. A few years we might see you out in Boston or San Francisco or.
Yeah, if the opportunity ever come up and, you know, that brown envelope come over, I'd not be only coaching. I'd be bringing the boots and shorts and socks. I'd be playing there as well. No problem. I'm sure we can sort out a nice holiday.
There's let's just say there's plenty of brown envelopes being thrown around the last few years. I'm sure you've heard a few of them. But a lot of brown envelopes, and I'm sure that's going to continue for the next couple of years.
And long may it last.
Yeah, I know in the next couple of weeks you'll start to see some big names coming out from big counties for, you know, the Boston Championship, you know, Chicago, Philadelphia. So don't be surprised when you see some inter-county players. You're like, oh, look who's coming over. And you know, look at last year. Look at the players that came over. You know, Ryan O'Neill was in Chicago. Who else was in Boston? I'm trying to think.
You'd have the Mayo team on one of those Chicago clubs there at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, Oshie Mullen there as well, and Owen McLaughlin, and there's a good few big names. Yeah, there's always good. Like the quality. Isn't there a rule that only a certain amount of them can be on the pitch at the same time? Is that a thing that there can only be, was it 3 or 4 of them on one team at one time, or is that, did I make that up?
No, you're right there. Yeah, it depends on the level now. I think in senior you can have, what is it? Am I right in saying 6 or 7, Gareth, or something like that?
Yeah, so it's 6. It's 6 home base. Now, actually, they brought it in. You have to have 2 American-born players on the field. So you have 2 Americans. You have I think it's 6 home base, and then 4 away base. So home base is anybody who is signed in Boston before April 31st. So we're actually getting to the deadline for home base players. So then the next deadline then I believe is, I think it's June. Is it June? where away-based players can come in then. After that, then pretty much the season's done. But if you're American, you can sign with a team pretty much right up until August, which is like championship time. Okay. That's when the finals are. So we're getting to the stage now in the next couple of weeks. You're going to start seeing players coming in. You'll start to see all the articles going up on Sports Joe and all them different online magazines where they'll be naming all the players, all the big names that are coming up. And you're starting to see as well, like even Boston, a lot of them are actually being filmed, and put on live on Facebook, and the traction they're getting. Oh, yeah. Like the Boston one last year it was thousands of views they had. So it just shows the demand for football, not just at home, but here as well, because a lot of boys have, like lads they've played with, friends, cousins that are over here playing, and they want to see how they're getting on, and that's kind of, it'd be nice in the summer once we get going to get them updates, for lads that are coming over and see how different divisions are doing, and, some of the players that are out, maybe doing some interviews with them players too, just to kind of get their perspective on, hey, how's Boston, how have you found the weather? How have you found the transition from 15 to 13? I think people will be interested in that. I think, especially in the summer months, when football's in full swing, it's a long winter here in New England where, we have the best of 4 seasons. We have like the autumn is beautiful. It's nice, but then it's freaking cold winters and you're doing nothing. You're hibernating for 3-4 months because it's fucking freezing outside and you can't even get outside. But then spring comes along, you're in that preseason mode, but then once the summer comes, it's in full fucking swing, and it's brilliant. So that's our kind of goal with this podcast, to kind of, get it up and going now. We'll be, and then by the summer, we'll be flying and, making sure that we're not just exposing Boston, where our division, but we want to be making sure that everybody's getting, looked at, the Pittsburghs, the Carolinas. There's actually a huge team down in Charlotte, where they're actually going to have a cool camps this year, and they're expected to have hundreds of kids, and a lot of these kids are like not even Irish, so they have a senior All-American girls football team that compete very, very highly, and they're putting it up with the Irish girls, so football, as much as we think it's Irish based lads and girls, it's so popular over here. And if you had it in one of the mainstream channels like ESPN, just kind of like, if they partner with Sky Sports, you wouldn't really be competing with anything on a Sunday morning. Like if you had a championship game there, baseball's not on, football's not on, complete different season, you could really open it up to a broad market there. Maybe that's down the line, but Gaelic football and hurling especially, hurling is growing so much here in the US. There's teams literally popping up everywhere, but it's a fantastic sport. And a lot of these college kids that came out of college and they're 23, 24, and they almost don't have that competitive outlet. They might have a pickup soccer game here and there or a pickup basketball game, but so a lot of the times they don't have that competitive sport outlet that a lot of people are just craving. You might have a rugby team that comes pretty close, but nothing, in my opinion, like Gaelic football or hurling. So, and it's in that summer, so where other sports aren't really.
I think both both hurling and football, especially football, just offers a good balance of, like, it's a tough, aggressive sport. You can get that bit of boldness out of you. But at the same time, you're not totally killing yourself. Like I play a bit of rugby myself now as well, and it's very tough after, you could be broke up for days after a game. The amount of injuries as well. Like, this, I don't think I've ever gotten a terrible injury from football, to be honest. It offers a good midpoint between soccer and rugby almost. So Gary, I'm right in saying you sell tailored gym programs for GA players and tailored towards Gaelic football?
Yep, so I have set plans on my website and I do tailored coaching then as well. So if you're looking at it, the off-season now at the moment, I have 3 off-season based plans on my website. I have a 3-day plan, 4-day plan, 5-day plan. I also have a running program. So looking back, if you're not quite sure what to do running wise in the off-season, I have a running program. So I live away from home. So I do my own training away from home. I'm not in the club on a Tuesday. I go home on a Friday. I train my club then. These are the sessions I do when I'm away from home myself. And I found that has kept me in match shape, match fitness. And I was actually just just kind of talking out loud. I realized, geez, that's a great idea to give for other people to do. That's where I came up with the idea for the running program. I've that available on my website. I have in-season plans available on my website then as well. A 2-day plan and a 3-day plan. They're all available on the website. And as I said to the lads here, I'll give a discount for any of the listeners here. You can put it below, lads. I'm not sure. I'll call it, the code will be USAGAA, and there'll be a discount on any of those plans on my website. And I'm sure the lads will link that below there as well. And if anyone is more interested in really specific tailored plans, drop me a message on Instagram and I'll give you the more details there. So my name on Instagram is Gaz Gaelic Guide, Gaz Gaelic Guide. And if anyone's interested in tailored and personalized plans, you can get me there. And if not, if you're looking and happy with set plans, they're on my website, and that code USAGAA will give you a discount for a short period of time then as well.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Gary. We know you're a busy man, so we appreciate you taking the time to come on here. And just before we wrap up, I want to thank everyone who's listening out there. If you like this episode, do us a favor, give it a like, follow, comment, subscribe, whatever you can do. We appreciate it. And thanks, and we'll catch you next time, I suppose.